I've dealt with chronic pain for over 20 years, and I've seen, like, probably hundreds of practitioners at this point, and nothing's been able to take it away. It's like, if I could get my 8-year-old body back and get rid of these aches and pains, you gotta believe I'm paying top dollar for so many people who have suffered for so long and been told there's no other option.
Yeah, different scientists in China, Japan, actually finding things that can reverse the age of cells, maybe give you certain things. That will be a dream come true. Maybe you don't have to face death anymore. I mean, I think it's a distinct possibility. Wouldn't that be the end all be all, right? If you have damaged anything, hurt anything, if you can just regenerate, now you're fresh and new. But when stem cells come in, oh my God, I feel like I'm 30 again. So you have this sense of rejuvenation, of this rekindling of life energy.
What an incredible place the body is. Like, it's just the most fascinating. I am so excited for this topic today because outside of acne, this is probably one of my favorite topics to learn about, to obsess over, because it is so absolutely fascinating. So, we had to bring in the expert in regenerative medicine, Dr. Joy Kong, who is a UCLA trained physician who is doing all of the things in regenerative medicine. Also, the founder of Chara Health, Chara Biologics. She's the president of the American Academy for Integrative Stem Cell Therapy, where she's training physicians worldwide. She was named the Stem Cell Doctor of the Decade in 2021. So, all of this is to say, we brought in like the GOAT of the stem cell world today, Dr. Joy. I'm so happy that you're here.
Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We think it's a fascinating subject, and like regenerative medicine, it's fairly new, especially to like the general public, right? So could you really break down like what is regenerative medicine?
Well, as the word sound like, it's about regenerating the body. So wouldn't that be the end all be all, right? If you have damaged anything, hurt anything, if you can just regenerate, now you're fresh and new. So that's the goal. So there's so many things that you can do to make your body to start to rebuild itself. So you can use, of course, stem cells because stem cells are rebuilding itself. That's what it does. And it can trigger your body to rebuild itself. So not only itself can make new tissue, it can also trigger your body to start to build its own new tissue. And then you can use exosomes, which will have similar signals. You can use peptides. There's a wide range of therapies that all are targeting at triggering your body to make fresh new self. So that could be ozone therapy, light therapy, sound therapy. So there's so many things that can all come together to play in the symphony of really remaking ourselves.
It's so incredible. And like I myself have done regenerative medicine. I've done exosomes, I've done ozone therapy, all of that. And it's had such a positive impact on my own health that I would have never been able to achieve with the standard medical options alone.
And if people don't think regeneration is just part of human life, just think about when you break your bone, right? What happens? Your bone actually heals. This is making new parts. So it's totally within us. It just sometimes we don't realize that's what the body's doing, that it can just make a new self.
So, how is stem cell working in the body? And like, why can it be such a really powerful thing to be using for longevity, illness, recovery, and so many things happening in our life?
It's because the body is built to repair itself and regenerate. So just like how we actually made ourselves from the blueprints that's in the cells, from the DNA messages, that we could make ourselves from literally a fertilized egg, right? We were once, all of us, once we were a single cell. So how the hell did we become who we are right now, right? That's the power that's embedded in these messages that's on the double strand DNA. So if we can utilize part of the message to make new parts of the body that got damaged, and that's what's happening. All the messages are there. The messages are there to make us. So then, of course, the messages are there to repair us. And the repair was much more effective when we were babies. When we were little kids, you can do surgery on our body and then there's no scar, right? But that won't happen when you're older because your body's ability to regenerate has declined. But still, all the messages are there. So what's happening as we age that we cannot repair as effectively? First of all, the environment has changed, that we may have accumulated more damages, more DNA damages, more metabolic damages, more toxicity. So all that is dragging us down. But also, we also are depleting our stem cell supply. We just have less and less of these cells to give signals to the body. So if your body's running out of signals, I use analogy, it's like when you watch TV, a high def TV, and when things are not the reception is not good and things start to become pixelated and you can't make out what is the image trying to tell me? What is it saying? So you're losing the message. But as you're given messages like peptides, stem cells, exosomes, all of a sudden, it's like the high def has come back to life. Now your body is like, oh, that's easy. That's the message. Now I can do what I already knew what to do as long as I can recognize what the message is. So that's really what we're trying to do. The message would direct the cells to conduct its activities. It's all about knowing what to do because it's in the cells to respond if it knows what the messages are.
Mhm. And when it comes to, regenerative medicine and stem cells, what is the science really showing? Because I know for some, like, it's a bit of a debated topic. There is some controversy around it. So, like, what is the science showing?
The science has been pretty exciting. So if it's just in concept, anybody can imagine, oh, stem cells, it can make any tissue. So it sounds great, but is really what makes this field exciting is because evidence has shown that it can help with so many conditions. So this is why I founded the academy because I really want to educate the doctors. Hey, you're not just giving therapy based on a promise. You're actually giving therapies based on all these studies that's been done and all the results we've already seen. And of course, as doctors, we're almost like a researcher. We're each doing our own research on individual patients. So we see in our practice what the results are because research may not have shown. But just by looking through the literature, you can see that there's a wide range of conditions that have already been studied. A huge range of autoimmune diseases, which is now a rampant type of condition that people suffer from, brain conditions, lung issues, heart, liver, everything you're looking at, all these organ systems, there have already been really, really good studies done. Of course, it's not uniform. Some diseases are less people suffering from it, so there's less incentive for people to actually spend all the money and energy to study. So, but from what we've seen, it's been pretty incredible the kind of rate of remission or complete reversal often is what we've never seen in medicine. A typical example is COPD, right? This is considered an end stage disease. There's really nothing we can do. We can give you oxygen, we give you some steroids, we're kind of, open up your airway. We try to make you suffer less and progress less, but there's nothing we can do to make you better. But when stem cells come in, boy, we can actually break down scar tissue. We can actually really allow the airways to repair and allow people to get off oxygen and allow people to start to have normal lives, doing things that they wouldn't be able to do before. So these kind of drastic changes is something that's not seen by doctors or autoimmune conditions. And so much so that sometimes the doctors treating them don't believe that it could be reversed through stem cells. So they were not willing to put their names on a publication because they were afraid of how their peers are gonna perceive them. I mean, this is just very strange, right? You don't think you would think the doctors would be so excited and would want to share, but there is a particular academic environment that actually are not encouraging people to just speak up about what's new, and they're afraid to be perceived, looked down upon for embracing something so new. It's just to me, I don't understand it because I don't
Yeah.
function that way. Yeah.
No.
I was like, "Truth, yes, let's
Yeah,
do this."
put it out there, and, like, for me, when I had an exosome injection, I had a disc issue in L4, L5, and I was getting, like, severe disc pain there, and since I've had that exosome injection a few years ago, I no longer have disc pain, so I would be so curious to see what my MRI now shows after I had that exosome injection.
Oftentimes, we can see changes in imaging We've done that, including lung repair, um, and cartilage regrowth. But sometimes a person may not see the kind of changes that would explain the reversal of symptoms. So you could be gaining motion in a joint, and then on the imaging, it shows that maybe the reattachment would not give you the kind of function. So the body actually is really interesting. The body adapts, even if your conventional wisdom is saying, well, no, it can't recover to that extent based on this imaging. It's very interesting.
It's kind of the theory that our genetic code, we can displace our own genetic code, right? It can kind of like rewire itself. Or I use it like when we're doing up a zipper and it misses the teeth. And the more that we keep using it, doesn't mean that the zipper is going to get stronger. It's going to get weaker and that gap's going to get bigger. And then eventually we get a new coat. Well, we can't do that with the body. Right. So it's funny when people say, "Oh, no, this can't happen." I'm like, if we can rewire and regenerate our own DNA structure through epigenetics, why can we not enhance it through exactly what you're saying and utilize the stem cells? And the body, like you said, it regenerates itself. You get a cut, what's its natural reaction to do? We have birth. Oh, we forget about that quickly, don't we? And we do it again. So the body will show up for you in any specific way. And it's whether it's epigenetics, whether it's a disposition, whether it's I've had a client and they had a manual manipulation 7 years ago and they were severely damaged. And they have tried everything and they're at the point of stem cells. They're going down to the States and Canada. Unfortunately, we just don't get this flexibility. And they're going down to the United States to get it. And I am like so excited for them because I'm like, yes, because I can do all the nutrition and I can do all the supplements and I can do all the regearing and the lifestyle and the habits. However, again, the body holds memory. So it's easy. So if you could kind of like allude, kind of like what I'm saying in there is just how when we go into stem cell, how does it know to do what it does? Well, like you said, it feels better. We have mobility, we have a quality of life returning. Like why would we want to disprove that? Because when we go to the doctor and we take a pharmaceutical and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I have no more bloat. This is great." And then we
Yeah,
stop the pharmaceutical and we get the bloat. What do? Go back on it. So again, I'm looking for more that because this is to me, this is more prevention at this point.
yeah, it definitely, I mean, it fixes the problem and it strengthens you so you will have less chance of getting that same problem. The highest level will be, well, it responds to your body signals. So when you are inflamed and damaged, the cells, that area will send signals to these cells. And somehow these cells recognize because that's what they do. That's what they do in the body. Specifically, I'm referring to mesenchymal stem cells. They're kind of the soldiers throughout your body that's just waiting for the battle where they're needed to regenerate. So they respond to signals in a area that needs help. They actually can squeeze themselves into the blood vessels because where they live is right along the blood vessels. So they're like hugging the blood vessels throughout your body. Of course, as we all get older, there are less and less of these soldiers, but their way of helping the body is to find where the problem is and squeeze themselves right out of the blood vessels so they can stay in that area to start to change the environment and to bring the forces in to help with repair. So they are geared toward sensing these signals. And once they sense the signal, then they have a whole range of activities that they engage in. So they can send different growth factors and different cytokines to calm the inflammation. So a lot of times when a chronic issue occurs or even acute issue, the inflammation is what the body's reaction is to try to make something change, right? The body is trying to uh, promote repair through inflammation. Unfortunately, a lot of times we get stuck in the inflammation that our body just doesn't have enough of these signals and these the resources to actually get the repair going. So then it's stuck in inflammation. The cells can get to these areas and calm the inflammation. Now your body can kind of take a breather And now let's go to the next step, right? Instead of being stuck on step one. So now you go to the next step, which will be to bring the immune system in. And the immune system will give you cells to digest and eat up the bad cells, right? We take them down, we break down the scar tissue. Let's lay down some more matrix. Let's talk to the local area, which have stem cells to regenerate the local tissues, but they're just stuck in inflammation. They were not hearing what needed to be done. Now these cells can send signals to these local stem cells and tell them to please come alive and make new tissue. So you take away the bad tissue, you break down the scar tissue, and then you make new tissue. And you can make new blood vessels to supply the tissue. So all these are part of the mechanism of how these cells work. So it gives you everything you need to get the local stem cells to come alive and get the blood to flow through. And it can also give you fresh mitochondria because these new cells they're supposed to be healthier, especially if you get them from a very young source. And then they can elevate your energy in that area, your immune energy, your local cellular energy, and now we can be more effective in the repair. The cells can do other things as well. It can rescue damaged cells. So when it recognizes a cell doesn't have to die, it can change its trajectory instead of going on programmed cell death, like we've seen in crush injury. Even the even if the area that didn't get crushed can end up getting necrosis, right? They become dead or stroke. The area that did not get blood supply cut off, somehow they became dead too. Is because the cell signaling pathways. So stem cells can actually intercept and prevent that kind of cascade. But in situations where you really don't want the cells to be alive, like in cancer situations or cells that are really dysfunctional, you want them to die. And somehow these cells recognize that there's certain cells that don't belong, and they send signals to trigger programmed cell death. So it's really interesting. The intelligence that's behind this, I think, is really, you know, so complex. It's very difficult for us to understand. There's something else that's orchestrating these powerful mechanisms. Just like, how does light help heal? I use laser light all the time, right? How does that help? What is it triggering? Complex mechanisms. There's something that maybe light is part of the directions, is part of the what's orchestrating, how we are uh, making ourselves and how we are not only making ourselves but sustaining ourselves. When the sperm and egg meet, there's a flash of light. What's going on there? So it becomes, mysterious. Maybe one day we'll understand the mystery. If we know
Yes.
exactly how everything's done,
We know too
now
much.
now we've made it.
Yeah. And it's incredible, right? For as much as we know about modern medicine in the body, there's still so much left to learn, and that the body truly is a miraculous place.
Yeah, and it's very exciting. So I think stem cell therapy right now, I just talked about mesenchymal stem cells. These are considered, I call them the conductor in the symphony of regeneration for the body. They really are conducting all these aspects of repair. But there are other ways of healing the bodies through stem cell therapy. Right now, these are not as mature as the mesenchymal stem cells. uh, we know how these cells work. We know how to give them, and and we've seen evidence of it. So other forms of stem cell therapy are just not as far ahead, but they could be even more powerful. So, for example, we discovered, the Japanese scientists discovered a group of cells that are part of mesenchymal stem cells. So they are a small fraction of it, but they are really powerful in making new cells, and it's called Muse cells. So what they can do is to go into your damaged tissue, eat up your damaged tissue. So literally eat them, and then the DNA fragments will trigger these cells to become the type of cell of the ones that they just ate, right? How elegant, right? You don't need outside triggers. You don't need to say, well, this is the way you can become this type of cell. All it takes is these cells will just eat the bad cells, and then they will become what you need. That's another, right? Very exciting. Or you can get skin cells, or any type of cells in your body. Skin, often is the most disposable, and you can get those cells and trigger them into a embryonic state. So make them go back to the origin, and now they have all the potential there is. And then you can work with these cells to kind of induce them to become what you need. And that's a whole other area. But the technology is not mature yet, but the promise is phenomenal. And I don't know if you heard about, different scientists in China, Japan, actually finding things that can reverse the age of cells, maybe give you certain things. I mean, when that will be a dream come true, right? Maybe you give your body certain signals, either by ingesting it or injecting it. And all of a sudden, all these different organs would just start to go back to the younger state. So that's the promise we're facing. So literally, stay alive, try to take good care of yourself. Maybe you don't have to face death anymore. I mean, I think it's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, like, the fact that you could do something and just reverse like, if I could get my 8-year-old body back and get rid of these aches and pains, you better believe I'm paying top dollar.
No one would bother with facelifts anymore, right? You just do something and your face would just go back to how you were when you were, 22.
And I love that you said the mitochondria because it's the wheelhouse, it's the energy, the power, the real source that drives those cells. And we don't probably even talk. I don't know how much specific with the mitochondria outside of stem cells, but even outside of that is we don't talk enough about the mitochondria. We don't talk enough about cell regeneration. We don't talk enough about, yeah, we talk about inflammatory reactions and they're good and they're bad and when are they good and when are they bad. But at the same time, it's rid of it. Like before you go into a procedure, and you've said that this, because you have to qualify people too, right? At what point do you start the treatments before even starting the treatments? So what does that look like as a pre-treatment? Do you do anything?
First of all, never immune suppressant. I don't believe in that. I think then you're not giving the right cells. If you're worried about immune rejection, then you need to worry about the type of cells you're actually giving people. And that's one of my beef with some of the therapies when they, you know, actually I spoke with a prominent scientist and I told her, I was like, why are you giving these immune suppressants to these kids? Because if you just give mesenchymal stem cells, possibly in addition to what you're doing, which was cord blood cells, then you will not have the kind of immune reaction and the potential damages that you have faced. So, fortunately, this scientist did take my advice. But if you're just giving cord blood stem cells, because they have so few mesenchymal stem cells, then there's a potential that the immune system is going to be so hyped up. There's not enough calming effect that they could react to something that's very different from the self, right? They're getting umbilical cord blood, which it usually is from another baby, right? Unless the person is trying to heal themselves from their own supply. But most of the time is from another human being. And then if you don't have something that help the immune system to adapt to be more tolerant, then you can have an immune rejection. But when you add the mesenchymal stem cells or when you use the mesenchymal stem cells alone, then you avoid those problems. That's one thing that you can teach people.
Because I see people do this, and one of the main things I see them get is a script of immunosuppressants, and my heart just I know what that does in the body. And unless you have some specific, renal failure or you had some kind of surgery where we need maybe to get into and it's for cause and purpose, why are we doing that with stem cells? Because this is a regenerative process and immunosuppressant is not.
So everything that we recommend is to enhance the body's health. The only time, because doctors ask me, oh, the person's on this medication, is on that medication, can I give stem cells? My only concern is that these medications are going to damage the stem cells. I'm never worried that this stem cell is going to do anything to the medication or to the effect of the medication. I can only enhance. I can enhance the body to the extent that the person will need less medications. So I'm never going to make your medication work, less effectively. That's completely backwards. So the only time I worry is people putting medications like chemotherapy agents that actively are killing cells that are rapidly dividing and damaging the DNA. Or there are certain other medications that we know that could interact with stem cells that damages stem cells. Not that stem cells is doing anything to the medication. So I'm always worried, okay, so if you're taking medication, a particular medication, for example, immune suppressant, that may not be good for my cells. But if that's keeping you stable, I think that a little bit of issue that's causing the cells may be something I'm willing to risk, because to just yank you away from a medication that you've been stable on probably is not the wisest thing to do. So if we keep you on medication, but we keep you on the lowest dose possible, and then we give you stem cells, the stem cells are going to start to repair your body and your organs, and then you will need less and less of that medication. But we let your body take care of that. We give your body time to repair itself, so it will allow you to reduce the dose of medications. So coming back to your question about what do you do to prepare the body, and that is the entire scope of holistic medicine. And this is why the academy I founded is called American Academy of Integrative Cell Therapy. So it's all about integration, because to think that stem cells is end all be all, then I'll just be falling into the same arrogant trap that a lot of doctors have fallen into, thinking that, oh, this, I know what to do. I know how the body works, and this medication is going to fix it. To think that the body function in a vacuum, if you just throw a simple little molecule, that's going to fix it all. And that is to deny the complexity of life, of how our body, our cells, that we rely on every molecule, all the things that you ingest and put in your body, all the minerals and how they work in the body, the amino acids, the lipids, and the sunlight and exercise, everything that can affect your life. If you deny that, then you are kidding yourself. So the last thing I want is to lie to myself. I just want to embrace what's real. So how you can enhance the benefit of cells is to do everything you can so your body is functioning at the highest level, so that this when the cells come in, it will go from that point on to enhance the repair. So it's not going to be dragged back, because your body cannot provide the tools for the cells to really give you the type of repair that you need. So what are the tools? You need enough building blocks, right? You need amino acids. If I'm giving you cells to make new cells, new tissue, new molecules, proteins, we need amino acids. So give your body amino acids, give your body the minerals that you need to signal. So I can give you all these signals, but you don't have anything else to perpetuate what I'm trying to instruct you, then the message is not going to go very far. You need the minerals, right? You need hormones. You need, other, there are all kinds of signaling molecules. You need your genes to be activated to a point where you can allow the signals to perpetuate, right? So everything is primed to a point where they can respond. So exercise, moving your body, that will get your body to be in a more responsive state. So when people come to me, I call it like three stages, or well, three things that need to be taken care of. One is what you put in your body. So they need to be on an anti-inflammatory diet. And two is that they need to move their body. So you can activate all these pathways for regeneration. So exercise activates more than 400 genes in your body. So you want these genetic operations to be in place, right? They're ready to go, and ready for repair. And then the last part is to detox. You want your body's toxic load to be as low as possible. It's impossible to be free of toxins and infections, but you want to do the best you can. We're living in this dynamic system. It's a tug of war, but you have to do what you can. So work with a good doctor, and try to detoxify. Do gentle infrared sauna. I do some sauna, some lymphatic drainage, and maybe some binders to really get the body to release these toxins that are kind of holding on to your apparatus, your cellular apparatus, keeping them hostage so it can't move, it can't help you repair. So these are the few things that I think are essential.
You're speaking our language. Chris and I are not along because we're on anti-inflammatory nutrition and the movement and all of these wonderful things. So I'm so happy to hear that that's how you have your clients starting out because that's exactly right. You can only do so much with the stem cells if it's going in and it doesn't have any way to continue the message.
So one way I help people conceptualize it is to talk about the cells being the seeds, right? The seedlings. I'm trying to seed these beautiful things to help you flourish, but you need the right soil. So if you have dirty and just toxic soil, that I'm putting the seeds in, the seeds are not going to flourish. So please, please clean up the soil.
Now, for so many people, we've talked about it being helpful for COPD and all of these different ailments and illnesses, but how can cells actually help improve day-to-day things like energy, hormones, fertility, athletic performance?
Yeah. So why are we lacking in these life forces? So that's the key, right? And a lot of it is chronic inflammation that our body has been accumulating toxins and has been exhausting itself, and so now is functioning at a lower level. So it's a common thing for my patients when a lot of times, they really notice their energy decline when they're in their 60s, 70s. So after stem cell therapy, and I hear that often, oh my God, I feel like I'm 30 again. So you have this sense of rejuvenation of this rekindling of life energy. So I've, a doctor who got our therapy and he's very much, into energy. And he said, yeah, I feel this new life energy, like this elevation of my life force. So if you can calm the inflammation, now your body is functioning at a higher level. And inflammation leads to decline, leads to aging, leads to wrinkles on our face. Right. So these are visible signs that your body just can't make new cells anymore. That is stuck in this lower level of being alive. So when the cells come in, it will calm the inflammation. Now everything is functioning at a higher level. Maybe your organs are supposed to produce hormones, now can produce more hormones. We've had, for example, one of our doctors wanted to enhance fertility. And then after stem cells, the AMH is increased significantly. We've had multiple women getting pregnant after stem cell therapy. So what's going on there, right? You're enhancing the life force, your ability to thrive. And of course, it can break down scar tissue. It can help your body enhance your immune system. If your immune system has declined, then you can't fight damages, infections, or just the aging decline. So you can't fight these degradation. Then you can remove the cells that don't belong. So now you have these zombie cells or these senescent cells that are sitting there, not just not doing anything, but actually doing damage. So if we can enhance our immune system and remove these things that are actually causing damage by sitting around and doing toxic stuff, then our life force is elevated, that everything can function at a higher level. So there are these multiple aspects, right? And mitochondria, we talked about mitochondria. If you get younger sources, then you get younger mitochondria. And all of a sudden, all your cells are functioning at a higher level.
What an incredible place the body is. Like it's just the most fascinating thing. And the fact that stem cells can go in and give this vitality back to so many people that haven't had it in maybe decades. So what would you say, Dr. Joy, are some of like the really big myths, maybe the misconceptions that are still out there about regenerative medicine and stem cells?
But the biggest one in the US is that it boggles on my mind till this day that people think that stem cell therapy is not legal in the US. And that is the biggest lie, and it keep perpetuating. I would think that the people who benefit from this myth will be people who set up shop overseas, right? So you can't do it in the US. You have to come to us. And it's doing people such injustice because a lot of people can't travel outside. Maybe they don't have the resources and they think it's too difficult. It's one extra barrier when we can provide stem cell therapy legally and and I think a lot of people are doing it in very, very well. We are actually the leader in stem cell therapy, partially because we're actually a country that's more open, a lot more open than Canada. So I have a lot of Canadians who fly down here to get treatment. So we are lucky. We're in the United States that the government we actually have the mechanism of protecting doctors who want to give this kind of therapy. Because what we do in America, not only some states have legalized stem cell therapy, like Florida, Texas, and Utah, Nevada. So there are different states that we have this thing called state rights, right? We are like little countries that you can't tell us what to do. We decide our people's fate, and we decide on what's right and what's good for our people. So different states have passed laws to encourage stem cell therapy. But even in states that have no such laws, there's no law that says our state bans stem cell therapy, that this is not legal in our state. There's no state that says this is illegal. So now we're falling into the gray area. So now it's up to the doctor to decide, should I give this therapy to patients? The thing is, if you give something that you consider experimental, which means that it has not been approved by the FDA, giving you the permission to treat a condition, now you can still give people, whatever you think will help patients. But you just can't make any claims. You can't say, hey, you have this condition, so I have this therapy that will treat this condition. If you don't say that, you don't say, oh, I promise I'm gonna, this is gonna work on your condition, then you're making a claim. If you don't make a claim, you offer people something that you know is considered experimental, and you explain it adequately. You explain the benefits, the potential problems, and you lay it all out and be very open with patients. Then you are just being a doctor. So if you don't overpromise and you don't give people false hopes, then you are upholding your own ethics as a doctor. So you have your medical board to answer to, right? So if you make false promises, if you trick people and you're unethical, then the patients can report you to the medical board, right? So it's between you and the board. Again, if you don't make false promises, there is within your rights. Literally, I could take something from the dirt and and infuse and give it to people through IV if I think that's good for the patient. If I have a leg to stand on, if I have research to refer to and I know this is safe, then you can give it to patients if you can justify yourself. So that's where it's at. What's sad is that in the business aspect of how doctors actually acquire patients and get patients to come into the door, they either go through word of mouth or they use some kind of social media advertising, internet advertising. So big corporations have decided that you cannot advertise for stem cell therapy. Google will not let you post it. Instagram will not let you talk about it. Facebook will not let. So these are the three biggest sources, right? So if you can't say, "Hey, we provide stem cell therapy," um, most of the time that they as a corporation, they've decided that this is in a category of miracle cures, same as the category of snake oil, right? So unapproven. So show me the research on snake oil and then show me the research on stem cell therapy. I have thousands of research, each one meticulously done in some place, most of the time in an educational institution, that they have spent years producing a paper on stem cell therapy. So all these are published articles on stem cell therapy. It has been shown to be extraordinarily safe and often very effective, more effective than anything we have ever seen. So if you have these research as your backbone, right, as a doctor, it's like, okay, I know this has been studied. All these benefits has been demonstrated again and again ad nauseum. And I, as a doctor, seeing that this patient is suffering from this condition and is not getting adequate help. So I'm offering this potential therapy for this patient to see if it's going to help. Then you are absolutely within your legal rights to provide this treatment. And actually, I think it's within your ethical obligation to provide the treatment. And for doctors who are balking at it, you need to grow a pair of balls. And I'm mad at these doctors because I think they are betraying who they are when they went to medical school, that they are looking at something to protect themselves. So it's not about protecting the patient, not about helping the patients who are suffering. So your first obligation is to people who are suffering. But and unfortunately, I see doctors being just humans, Still, it still makes me mad. They're being humans, they're being very selfish, they're being self-protective, um, and really betraying their first responsibility. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Dre, I think more physicians should follow in your footsteps in the thought process here because you're unfortunately that is the truth with so many physicians. But I'm glad that you're really leading this wave of wanting people to actually feel better, not just giving them a medication and pushing them out the door. And I've been wondering this whole time is what have been some of your most favorite patient outcomes that you have seen through the use of stem cell therapy where you're like to this day I still am just so blown aback by it.
Yeah, there are a lot. So just give you some examples. Well, my very first patient, where I can never forget, that he trusted me to help prevent him from getting knee replacements. So he had bilateral knee osteoarthritis, and two orthopedic surgeons told him, absolutely, you need to replace both knees. And he was 69 years old. He was very active, going to all these trade shows. And he said, I don't want to deal with that. The recovery time is very long. I don't feel comfortable. What can you do before they cut me up? So I give him an IV stem cell infusion, which brings up his regenerative potential. You want the IV, you really, really, whatever you're helping. I teach this to all my doctors. Please recognize the importance of IV therapy because it's not just about putting things in your veins, knowing the cell's going to be attracted to the area of the damage and they're going to come out and do its work. Before they get there, they're actually circulating and talking to your immune system. So they are interacting with your spleen and with your peripheral lymphoid system. So throughout your body, they are elevating your immune system. So your immune system is a linchpin in how fast and how well you can repair. So you want to bring them on board. If you just put things locally, yes, it's going to prepare for regeneration. It's going to accelerate it, but you're also missing a big piece of the power, the engine that drives this. So I gave him an IV infusion, and then I injected some stem cells into both of his knees. And the next day, he was like, "Well, I'm doing fine." And one thing I noticed is that I slept through the night, and I haven't slept through the night for 40 years because I had rotator cuff injury. When I was a teenager, I was in a car accident. The car rolled over, damaged my rotator cuff. So it never healed. Every night when I shift my body in my sleep, the sharp pain would wake me up. But somehow I wasn't woken up last night. I slept through. And so that was when 9 years ago. So that rotator cuff is no longer a problem. I fix his shoulder without touching his shoulder, without even knowing about the shoulder. So that was my first inkling. I was like, what did I just do? Okay, of course his knees are fine. He's walking 4 miles every day, for years and knees are saved. And who was I to save his knees? Because at the time, I had just switched from being a psychiatrist to a integrated medicine doctor. So I just made a career switch because I didn't believe that I was making enough difference. I didn't want to just throw heavy duty drugs to help fix people's brain when I know if I can fix their whole body, a lot of times the problem in the brain is going to go away. So why don't we start at the root cause? So I just made the switch, but still I wasn't trained in orthopedic. I wasn't an orthopedic surgeon. So how was I able to save his knees? And that gave me a sense of power, and it was really fun. It was like, "Oh my god, look what I did." Of course, I knew it was not me. I knew the technique. The cells did everything. The cells somehow you guys asked me, "How do they do it?" I don't know. They did it. And they're so fun. So the cells have the ability to find where it's needed and then just start going to work. So it makes life so much easier for the doctor. I always say that stem cell therapy is inspiring and it's fun because it's elegant because you put something simple in the body and then it promotes this wide range of actions and you just kind of let loose, right? You let this this genie loose and just let it do its thing. Very soon I had the second patient who's chronic pain, decades of severe, 9 to 10 out of 10 pain from all these injuries or just chronic, I think a lot of chronic inflammation, severe pain. And after one infusion, the pain pretty much went away. And he was going to cryotherapy to freeze himself, to use cold to trigger this anti-inflammatory response. And to some extent, maybe about, he still had, 6 to 7 out of 10 pain. And with one infusion, he could be pain-free. And that was just, fun, right? That was like, I did it, but not really, not me. And then I treated a liver cirrhosis patient. So he was dying, literally dying in hospice care. And he was had huge swollen belly, right? The ascites and with a lot of fluid accumulation, barely had any strength to talk, was emaciated, just, shrunken. Um, and I gave him one infusion. Within 2 months, his liver function actually went back to normal. That one was a shocker. That one to me was like, I don't really understand, but once in a while, I see drastic cases like that, reversal of disease when he was in deathbed. So whatever the cells did, actually it happened so fast that he lived in Sacramento, and just driving from LA to Sacramento, during the drive, his swelling was already halfway down in his belly. So that one is just, yeah, incredible. So and then I had, yeah, talk about fast response. I had another lady with rheumatoid arthritis. She was a surgical technician. She couldn't go to work because she couldn't even hold things. And in the middle of the IV infusion, she made a fist. And I remember it was just like 20 minutes into the infusion, she made a full fist and started crying. She said, "I have not been able to make a fist for over 2 months." And of course, she went back to work. And yeah, so that was really fun. And then we had another patient. So this is not too long ago. We had a patient who was fully blind in one eye from a damage during a brain surgery when he was 9 years old. And, after one infusion, during our follow-up, with the patient, I think it's probably about, a month after, he said he started seeing in that eye, which is something that I would never even tell the patient that that's a possibility, because I just think that's just so long ago. The patient is in his 40s, right? It's a long time ago of being blind in that eye, so he was starting to see, and, absolutely incredible. And we have, Parkinson's patients who was in wheelchair, for a few years, started walking to the point of running on the beach with his son. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding. And, our whole entire clinic's in tears, when the patient's talking about, what happened. People who suffer from cancer, cancer markers after doing everything that the person knows. This is a person that's really familiar with whole integrative space and tried everything, light therapy, different advanced treatments. Yeah, but after stem cell therapy, the markers came down, the cancer markers, the in this case is leukemia. Marcus came down, and not just once and twice, and he was so excited. And people with diabetes tried everything there is, including extended fast, and over 20 days of fast, and nothing allowed the blood sugar level to come down after one treatment. Now the blood sugar came down. So it just again and again, autism kids, after treatment, started talking, started saying thank you, started not being incontinent. I'm sure I'm forgetting, a lot of other cases, but more chronic back pain, right? Decades of back pain, and being able to quickly recover, walking miles every day, taking long flights, absolutely no problem. Whereas before, barely able to go into garage. The mobility was so limited. So, yeah, just again and again, these are what makes it really fun for me and for all the doctors working at our clinic. So they're excited. You're excited about what you can do for patients.
It's incredible because 'cause you're making a real difference, like, people are actually getting better. And, like, I've dealt with chronic pain for over 20 years, and I've seen like probably hundreds of practitioners at this point, and nothing's been able to take it away. So, Dr. Roy, you may see me in your clinic if I fly down from Canada to come in for some treatments because just it's so promising for so many people who have suffered for so long and been told there's no other
Yeah.
option.
Oh, another case I want to mention because I'm so proud of what we were able to do. This is a 9/11 responder in New York Special Police Force, and he's young. He's barely 50, and a lot of his peers in their prime, in their 40s, died from the toxicity that they breathed in during the times they were in the pit. So this gentleman, he was in the pit for 8 months. So severe lung damage. He had trouble walking upstairs at home from a very, very high level. This he is a U.S. veteran as well. This very, very um, vibrant young soldier really into somebody that's severely damaged and not knowing how long he was going to live. We were able to give him the treatment. So we actually not only now he's sprinting, he's got his life force back. When he got back to his doctor to do the CT scan, his lung is cleared. A vast majority of the lesions were cleared to the point where his pulmonologist said, "Yeah, you can say that you're pretty much free of lung problems." So he's the first documented 9/11 responder or 9/11 victim that got really incredible repair.
Now, Dr. Joy, I think everyone listening to the podcast is probably lining up to come fly over to LA for treatments. So, if people want to go and learn more about the work that you do, get in contact with you, where's the best place to do that?
I think my YouTube channel is an incredible resource. It's just look Joy Kong MD. So I have public lectures covering different subjects like uh, what stem cell therapy means for diverse diseases. I cite research evidence. I have one on autism, one on the anti-aging benefits because we also treat people who are not sick, who really just want to enhance their longevity and extend their youth, right? So we also do a lot in that arena, and I'm one of those. So I'm basically a patient for my own clinic because I've been doing IV stem cells on myself every 3 months for the last 9 years. Well, I want to show people that this is a distinct possibility that you can actually reverse signs of aging and live in a younger state. So I give people in that lecture the research evidence that is just not me being excited and trying to promise you anything. It's really because I've read the research and they've looked at inflammation markers and everything that's the sign of aging that they actually were finding that everything was reverted back to a younger state. So literally people these are usually animal studies. The animals have extended lifespan and health span, and when they actually look at the markers, all the cellular markers went back to how they should be when they were younger. And then I have I think a lecture on immune issues and then a lecture on different cell sources. So I wanted to show people why it's actually important to get cells that are younger. It has a lot of advantages. And also, more is not necessarily better because just because you're going overseas and they promise you to give you 300 million cells, when you get cells that have been expanded and grown in a culture medium, you are getting a degraded cell population unless they are giving you, cells that are not expanded for for too many generations, and they know exactly what they're doing, that they're preventing those declines. But from what I know, the vast majority of these companies, they have let the cells multiply to many generations, and that allows the cells to degrade. And so even if they give you 10 times the number of cells I'm giving you, you actually have less benefits. And I'm saying this from people who have reported back to me, from people who have received those therapies and who either have not gotten enough benefits or have gotten quite a bit of side effects, and then they come to me and have a whole different experience. So I cover on YouTube cover different aspects of stem cell therapy, like how many cells you need, how often you need, how soon you're going to see the benefits, and what other things you need to do to enhance the treatments, and are you worried about having other people's DNA in you, and what does that do? If you have cancer, what does that mean? Because that's the only problem that people tend to worry about. You have cancer, can I use stem cells? I talk about that. But every aspect about stem cell therapy, I try to provide some kind of insight for people. So that would be the best resource. A lot of people actually, when they come to me, they have watched all my videos. So, which is great because then I tell them, if you've absorbed information that I'm providing on YouTube channel, then you know more about stem cell therapy than 99.9% of the doctors. So, and then if people want to reach me, they can also just get on Instagram as Dr._Joy_Kong, Kong. And then I'm very responsive, and I try to answer questions the best I can. And our clinic is called Chara Health, Chara. So if people want to find out about what we do at the clinic, is chara-health.com, and they can reach us and get a consultation with us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy, for coming in, sharing all of your incredible information. This has been absolutely fascinating. Like I said, you'll probably see me on your patient list in a few months because this is all the things that I need to be doing. So, all right, everybody, as I mentioned, everything for Dr. Joy is in the resources, in the show notes. Go and check it out. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Keep It Clear.